is Latanya. I have a YouTube channel called Smarty Style. I am making this video right now in collaboration with Teachers Connect, a resource that has been created by two men on the East Coast of the United States, and it is a resource that is primarily geared for teachers to have a one-stop shop to ask any question they may have, to post any information they'd like to post about our profession, to just interact with other teachers and have that huge support system that we teachers need. So they've come up with a set of questions that I'm going to be answering, and the whole focus of these questions is just the process we teachers go through to improve our craft as teaching, those moments that we've had where we really feel like we've become a better teacher, and those moments where we've had and we know that we've made a mistake and how we learned from that. So I have a list of questions here in front of me that I'm going to be answering, and I hope that you guys find it helpful. So let's get started with these questions. So the first set of questions are just really background about who I am as a teacher. So again, my name is Latanya. I teach third grade in Southern California. Prior to teaching third grade, I spent the bulk of my teaching life as a fifth grade teacher. I spent a couple years in fourth, and then I also taught third, pre-com, and core. This is my 14th year teaching, so I've been doing it a while now. I enjoy it, and I enjoy this age, but I am looking to go towards middle school going forward. So the first big question says, I'm going to read it because it's kind of lengthy and I don't want to miss any parts. It says, describe a time or the first time you realized you were becoming a better teacher. Where were you? Did it involve an interaction with a parent, student, administrator, or another teacher? And what was the situation, or what was the outcome? So when I was thinking about the answers to these questions, especially this one, I really couldn't pinpoint one particular day, one particular lesson, or one particular interaction that I had with students or parents that made me feel like I was developing as a teacher or becoming a better teacher. I think if I had to choose like overarching moments, for me, it's any time where I really genuinely feel that I've connected with the student, that I've gotten to the point where that student is aware that I truly and deeply care about their success as a student, and that anything that I'm doing in the classroom and any conversation that I'm having with them, whether it be, you know, encouraging or in some cases corrective, that they know I'm doing so out of just pure care. So those are the moments where I feel like I'm really developing as a teacher. This is the kind of teacher that I've wanted to be, or the kind of teacher that I aspire to be. And the same goes for when I'm interacting with parents, and more so when I'm interacting parents perhaps like at the end of a school year, and they take the time to let me know how much I meant to their child as their child's teacher, or let me know how much they valued me as a teacher as parents of those children. And then especially when I'm able to stay in touch and communicate with parents who their kids have passed through the doors of my classroom years ago, but we still have a connection, and they know I'm still interested in their child and how their child is doing, and just being able to maintain those friendships and relationships that I had established years ago. I will say the last school year for me was probably one of the most challenging school years I've ever had. There was a lot of things going on for me. I switched school sites by choice. I left a school I was at for more than a decade that I was super comfortable in, had a good amount of success there as a teacher, and I came to where I'm at now because I wanted the experience of opening a brand new school and helping to establish the culture and climate of a school. In addition to that, I was teaching third grade, which I had taught before, but not in this Common Core setting, and so all the comfort of knowing the lessons and the ins and outs of the pacing of things was no longer there for me. I went from a team of 3 that had worked together for years, that was pretty solid, to a team of me and another person, and just learning and navigating the dynamic of that was a challenge. I decided to go back to school at the same time, and I was working at a school where I had no history. So some of the teachers that came here had history with the parents, even though the school was brand new, because this school was formed with the population from another school, and a lot of the teachers here came from that school. So there was a lot of familiarity with some of the parents and some of the teachers here, but I didn't have that because I didn't come from that school. So that feeling of having to establish myself or prove myself was overwhelming, and not knowing what people thought because I had no reputation set. So it was tough. But over the summer, when you start getting information on how your class performed as a whole in terms of state testing, when I got my scores back, I was beyond pleased with how my kids did. And that is probably one of a few moments, if not the only moment, where I allowed myself to say, you know what, you're doing a good job. Like, you are really giving this your all, and your hard work and your dedication and the long hours that you're spending in the classroom and the stress and the sometimes tears are paying off because your kids are learning, especially given the fact that last year was so difficult for me. I really struggled. Like, it was one of the hardest years. And so for me to realize that in the midst of that, I was still able to teach my students well enough for them to perform well on those end of the year assessments was huge for me, and really allowed me to start this school year with a lot more confidence than I had last school year. So, it's just little moments. I don't think I have one lesson, one moment, but just those feelings you have where you've connected with the student, you've connected with the parent, you can see your hard work on paper in terms of scores. Even though I know scores aren't everything, they are an indication of something and your effectiveness to some degree. So I would say that. Next question is, how important is ongoing learning to being an effective teacher? I absolutely believe that this is a profession where you have to be willing to continuously learn, because it's constantly changing. Sometimes the changes are for the better, sometimes the changes are a bit questionable, but regardless, it's changing. And whether or not I agree with every change, I need to be at least aware of it. I think one of the biggest moments where I had that realization is when I had to tell myself, you can't continue to be one of these teachers that just says, you know what, I'm not really good with technology, so I'm really not going to worry about infusing that in my class or making that work for me as a teacher. Because the fact of the matter is, these kids nowadays are very tech savvy and are very engaged by technology. So I would be doing them a disservice to not at least attempt to learn and understand this huge area of their life, or this huge interest in their life, because I just don't want to take the time to learn about it. So when I just kind of sat down and said, like, you're just going to have to jump in there and learn what you can and do what you can and go from there, I saw positive results. So I definitely think you can't just say, I got my degree, I got my credential, I've learned everything that I need to learn in terms of teaching. Because if you do that, this profession, this work is just going to pass you by, and your students would be the ones to suffer. So I would definitely encourage professional development, whether it's initiated by your school, your district, but also if there's something that you're interested in, take the initiative, teach yourself how to do something new that you feel will benefit you in the classroom, because ultimately it will benefit you as a teacher, but it will also benefit your students as well. The next question, describe a time you made a mistake as a teacher, learned from it, and applied what you learned later on. The one mistake that I can think of that always sticks out to me the most was one of my, I think this was my second or third year teaching, and I had a student who was just kind of off task in class. Not in a loud way, but just kind of a daydreamer. She just was never really fully attending to lessons and what was going on. And I went to her, and my heart was really in the right place, but I went to her and I said, your teacher last year, Mrs. So-and-so, told me that this was an issue for you last year, that you were distracted and you daydreamed quite a bit. So we really need to work on that. Now, I thought that I was doing something good by letting her know that this was an ongoing issue and that we really needed to work on it. She went home, I believe, that day and told her mom about it, and then her mom went to the teacher that had said that to me and kind of gave that teacher a hard time. And then of course that teacher came to me and said, I told you that for your information, not for you to then repeat it to the student, because now that makes me look like I'm just out gossiping about my students, which I'm not doing. And I felt so bad because that was not my intention, but I totally understood why that teacher was frustrated and the point that she was making. So I did learn, as teachers, we do share information about our students. And I would say you want to keep that to a minimum, because your experience with the student does not necessarily mean that's going to be the experience for the next teacher. But sometimes we have valuable information that we need to share with the next year's teacher. But just knowing how to use that information and not putting a former teacher in the position to have to defend what they said and why they said it. And then also not making the student feel like, you know, teachers are talking about you and this is what we're saying, because I think that's why she went home and told her mom, because she was affected by it. She didn't understand that I was doing it thinking that I was gonna help her kind of deal with a bad habit that she had. I think she just felt like, oh, the teachers are talking about me, I'm a bad student. So I definitely remembered that. I never did it again. I learned my lesson, and when that teacher told me that, I was just like point taken. Next question, how important were connections with other teachers, mentors to your success as a teacher? Were colleagues you found online helpful? So this is my 14th year teaching. Up until the past couple of years where I got involved with YouTube and social media, I really wasn't seeking out any sort of mentoring from other teachers online. I wasn't even aware that that was a thing, and I don't really think it was a thing a few years ago. I wouldn't say that I had a teacher that I felt was like a true mentor. I definitely had different teachers at different places teach me like little logistical things about teaching and thinking about things and just getting different perspectives. But I think the thing that helped me develop the most as a teacher was just being able to, being able to spend several years on a team that was super solid. When I taught 5th, even though the team changed a couple years due to numbers and people transferring, it was a very solid group of women who we each had our strength. We each knew what that strength was, and we were fine with it. And so I might have been strong with one particular aspect of our grade level. My friends were strong with something else, and we knew who to go to and when to go to them. That was number one. Number two, it was a safe place. Like, we genuinely were friends. We enjoyed each other's company. We were always laughing, but in the midst of all that laughing, we were always working hard. And if I ever had like a moment where I was just upset or frustrated or feeling insecure about a lesson, I knew I could go to those women to get support, to get some help, to get some guidance, and I wouldn't be judged. And that gave me the confidence to just, you know, mess up in order to improve, if that makes sense. So I definitely think who you work with has a huge impact on how you develop as a teacher. And I was fortunate enough to not only work on a team of people that I really enjoyed, but I enjoyed the whole staff at the school that I was at. And I think that they helped me to grow into the teacher that I was. And my principal and my assistant principal helped me to grow into the teacher that I've become today. And I'm super thankful for that. Next question, if you could give your past first-year teacher self some advice about becoming a great teacher, what would it be? I would just say that your first year is, for me, kind of like the throwaway year. Not like you're not going to go in there and try, but you need to go in there fully aware of the fact that you're going to make a ton of mistakes, that your room is not going to be perfect, that your lessons aren't going to be perfect, that you're going to mess up all the time. And that's just the nature of your first year. You have to mess up to know what didn't work so that you know what will work going forward. And I think most people are okay with that. Nobody that I've ever worked with who's working with a brand new teacher expects that brand new teacher to come in knowing every single thing and just being on top of it all. And quite honestly, I have in the past worked with brand new teachers that come in and I think they think that's what the expectation is. And instead of coming across as confident, oftentimes they can come across as you know, overly confident, lacking a certain level of humility, and not being open to the wisdom that some older teachers or more experienced teachers might have. And that can be off-putting to people. So I would just say to my first year self, and I think I allowed myself this, because I remember thinking like, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue, because I hadn't even subbed. My first day of teaching was literally like my first day in a classroom. I had never subbed, anything like that. So just cut yourself a break. Just know that that year is the year that you're going to look back on one day and say, I don't know what I was doing and how I even survived, and that's okay. Just try your best. Seek out help when you need it. Don't pretend like you know everything, because no one's expecting you to do that. And just have a certain level of openness and humility along the way. Now, this one is more of a secondary question, and it says, is there one thing that you're still insecure about or are working to master in your teaching practice? How are you working towards improving in this area? The one thing I'm insecure about, although this is my 14th year teaching, is I know that as a teacher, I'm pretty intense. Like, I have very high expectations. I'm very serious and very focused. And the more serious and focused I get, the more serious my demeanor becomes and overall presence. So especially teaching 3rd grade, I'm very insecure about what people's perceptions are of me, because I don't think I'm your typical primary teacher where I'm like, okay, boys and girls, and everybody, let's get on the carpet. Like, when people see me teach, they always say, you're definitely like an upper grade teacher, or I could totally see you in high school, or have you tried middle school? So to have people say that to me makes me feel like, well, are you saying I'm not really suited for young kids? And you know, what does that mean? Or I don't want parents to think like, oh, that lady is super intense, she doesn't care for my child. I just think that the way that I express care for my students is different. I definitely know that my students know that I care about them, because they spend the day with me and they interact with me a lot more than what their parents get to. But I'm always insecure as to what parents think about Miss Robinson. Like, what are their thoughts when they see their child is in my class? Are they happy? Are they frustrated? Are they nervous? So that's my insecurity. I don't know that it will ever go away. One thing that I'm working on as a goal is this year I would like to implement small group instruction for math. For the most part, my math instruction is primarily whole group. When I get to the point in a lesson where I feel like I've taught it as much as I intend to teach it, and now they're working independently, but I have some kids that I know can't do it, I'll pull that group back. But it's not super purposeful. It's not like I plan my math lessons and say, here's my groupings, this is what I'm gonna do that day. And that's always bothered me. My math scores have been fine, but my thought is they could be better perhaps if I was doing that. And I know that there's kids that are getting lost in the shuffle when I'm doing those whole group lessons. So I want to do more small group instruction with math, and definitely make more use of anchor charts, and just getting in the habit of having them posted and kids referring to them, and having the room be more reflective of things that we've done as a class and less pre-produced work on the wall. So those are my goals. I'm a little nervous because I need to start planning that out, because we're gonna hit math full blown next week, because I'm just wrapping up my first week of the new school year. But those are my big goals for the year. So I think that's really, those are all the questions. But for the purpose of this video specifically being done for Teachers Connect, we would like to reach as many teachers as we can, and encourage as many teachers as we can out there to just keep pressing. You're never gonna have a day where you just declare, I am the best teacher that I can ever be, or I have completely mastered teaching. That day is never gonna come. But you will have days where you feel like, you know what, I killed it today. Like, I was prepared, my kids were on it, I was on it, they got it, I saw it, I felt it. But then you will have days where you don't feel that way. And we just want you to stay encouraged in the process, and go to Teachers Connect if you're having those moments or you have questions, because that is what it's been created for, and it's a valuable resource for that, if nothing else.